A very good evening to you. It's a few minutes after 7. My name is Kobe Spike and Chroma. You're tuned in to Joy 99.7 FM if you didn't know, or if you weren't looking at your dial. Yeah, now you know. It's a Tuesday, in case you forgot, because yesterday was a holiday. And at this time, the show that talks about tech comes on. And last week we were talking about renewable energy, specifically solar power, because that's the easy, the first step to going off grid. And we had Noche Amate Fio from Nocheski Solar and David Kwame Adade, but David couldn't join us today, but he'll be joining us via Zoom later on in the show. And we want to, because we realized from last week that a lot of the terms went over a lot of people's heads, and people wanted questions answered because people want to go solar and want to know how to start. So we decided to come back and do it again. This time, the Geek Squad way. Demystifying the thing, like we're breaking it down. Notcha and I were talking prior to this, and we're like, Charlie, this thing is probably going to be like a 12-episode thing, because if we decided we're going to talk about batteries, now we're going to talk about wet cell, acid, and lead, and lithium ion, and deep cycle, all that. There's so much about batteries. Then we get to the panels, then you're going to talk about the types of panels, the wattage, and then we are even going to have to break down the wattage for people. That's going to be a whole lot, but we're going to try our best, and we need your help to help us help you. So if you're listening and you're very interested in solar power, maybe for your home, maybe for your business, send us a message. 055 111 997 055 1111 997. Somebody asked me the last time, why do I say it's different ways, especially the quadruple? I'm like, I asked somebody what quadruple stands for, and they actually thought it was 5 times the number. So I asked, what is quintuple? Then they're like, there's a quintuple. A lot of people end at triple. Yeah, they rarely go beyond that. So that's why I have to say it's in different formats. So 055 111197 055 1111 997 and 055 111 997. Send us your WhatsApp messages as we have this discussion, and if you have any questions, any suggestions, anything you want clarification on, send it now. Or you can tweet us at #JoyGeekSquad on Twitter. And if you're in the mood to join the Telegram group filled with geeks who have nothing to talk about except tech, go on Telegram, t.me/JoyGeekSquad. And if you want to see us, specifically Michael, since he's the better looking of all of us here.
Thank you for finally acknowledging it.
As he would always say without any humility. I'm just doing your job for you.
Thank
you can watch us on Facebook, Joy 99.7 FM, or on YouTube, Joy 99.7 FM. The show is brought to you by MTN everywhere you go. And I didn't look on a piece of paper. So, you remember there was this guy who did that skits on social. So, he took over. Kabilame took over from him, but he didn't say a word.
And see how much better he's doing for it by keeping quiet.
By keeping quiet.
A lot of people could learn.
But that guy ended up on BBC One.
Yeah, but he's not as famous as Kabilame though.
Because he started early. It's not always good to start early.
I mean, if you work in an office, don't follow that advice. But yeah, I can see how that can work out.
But sometimes too, it might be too early to bring some things to people.
Oh,
But it's never too early to start solar. At all. And on that segue, welcome back, Nocheski.
Thank you, sir.
Even though I called you by a company name, I know your actual name. So, yes, solar. Last week, we had a conversation, and we were trying to break down some of the terms, some of the processes. We want to rewind, or as I would like to put it, time travel back to last week. And just a quick summary of what renewable energy, specifically solar energy or solar power generation, is for those who do not know.
Let me add a little caveat.
Aye.
Coming from you, for instance, I think let's make it sound
did I introduce you guys?
It doesn't matter. They already
not every time. Maybe as a new listener. I was going to say new user.
could you please come at it as if you were pitching it to a regular consumer, that you're trying to convince someone that you should get into solar? This is why. This is solar. This is why you should get into solar. I feel like many people would understand it more if it came from that point of view, from a consumerism angle.
Why solar in Ghana?
What's
especially?
first?
What's
before the
solar?
why?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why?
So, what is it and why? Okay, so thank you, Spiky. It's always a pleasure to be amongst, beautiful people like you.
Like Michael specifically.
Anyway, so solar energy or solar power is basically the creation of electricity from light. Hence the word photovoltaic. Okay, so photo, light, that's what it means. Voltaic means voltage, and the electricity is generated when light or illumination hits the surface of solar panels, and that generates electricity for consumption, just like you would have electricity from, say, ECG, which ECG is mainly hydro, which is water that is generated from water, electricity that is generated from water. So, but why do we have to go solar in Ghana? Because in our part of the world, we are blessed with very good sunshine. And I mean, virtually round the year, we have sunlight, good one too. And according to statistics, we have 5.5 hours of efficient sunshine every day. So it's virtually free. You will always get some. So why not invest in solar? I would say that for anybody who is thinking about, building a home, for example, they should at least add the cost of the solar installation into the cost of the building. So for example, if you think that your building is going to cost you, say, $120,000, why don't you add some, maybe 10,000 extra or 20,000 extra, and know that you're going to spend $120,000 for your home? Okay, with that in mind, it's like building a home and including extra toilets or something.
Right.
And so you're programmed that you're going to spend $120,000 to finish the house, which would include solar power. Now, mind you, because you get the sun year round, your gains will be very high, because typically, if the solar power system is properly installed, you are guaranteed constant power for the next 15, 20 years, maybe.
So, if you're building your house, you have to consider setting up solar as part of it.
Yes, I think it's very, very important,
because we have sunlight all around the year,
and quality one too.
Yes, and that reminds me. Last week, Kwame was saying that solar and I don't know if we've got Kwame on Zoom right now. In the UK, it was terrible during certain times of the year, because of how terrible the weather is. But in these parts, so right now where we have so much rain, does it impact solar energy?
Yes, it does. It does.
By how much?
Well, for me, it's not very much. Okay, if you lived in the UK before, you would realize that it's mostly cloudy over there.
Right.
Okay, so you might not get that much. But over here, there's a lot of sun. And if you have your solar power system well sized, if you took all those things into consideration, I'll give you a very typical example.
When you say well sized, as in the size of the panels, or?
Okay, so typically before you would, the procedure of considering solar power is getting to talk to somebody worth their salt. Okay, somebody who knows what they're doing. Like I said, in Ghana, the word expert is misused and abused. And so, you need to talk to somebody who understands what they're doing. Right. When they come in, you have a discussion with them and try to understand what their energy needs are. Now, based on that, then you customize the system. We call it sizing, technically. Sizing. So, for example, after you've listened to what your needs are, then you know that, okay, well, they're going to have one air conditioner, they're going to have a washing machine, they're going to have these number of lights, etc., etc. And then you would calculate averagely how many hours they're going to be using. Then you're also going to ask them if they're going to be using this totally off-grid. For example, are they going to use only solar, or they want to use part of the grid? And then based on all these calculations, then you would then provide a solution. Right. Now, the other thing is that for others who are already living in their home, for example, I'm not talking about, the first one was for those who are now building or something. Yeah. But for those who live in their homes already, you could actually have a proper audit done using gadgetry that logs, records all the energy information, and then you could use that to size the system.
Basically, it's like tracking how much power you're consuming.
Exactly.
So that you can know that, okay, I'm consuming, let's say, 1,000 watts. I don't know if that's a lot or...
Well, yeah, that's all right.
So based on that, I need X.
If, for example, we find out that in total your average consumption per hour is 1,000.
So that's how you measure it, per hour?
Yeah, per hour.
Right.
There are so many types of ways to look at it. You can look at per hour, per month, per day, etc., per week. But
which is more efficient? Which one is best?
Well, typically per hour. Per hour. And then, so if you're consuming, say, 1,000 watts per hour, and that is constant for the next 24 hours, then daily you're using what? 24,000.
Right.
So that would be your consumption for a day. And so the consultant would then calculate how to create that 24,000 watts for you.
Okay.
Now, this is where weather comes in. So during cloudy days, how do we produce the 24,000? That we need to put into consideration, how much we need to add here and there, So for example, if you have a customer in Ibri where it's often cloudy, okay, and they have the same 24,000 watt demand per day, you would want to add a bit more for them.
Right.
Compared to somebody who lives in, say, Labadi, where it's always sunshine or something in Accra. So that's just, the analogy.
Okay. So then basically it means that if it's not too sunny, you increase.
Right.
So you create a buffer.
Exactly, because you need to create. So the whole thing about the 5.5 is this. You need to create as much as you can within that period where there is sufficient sunshine. Use what you can and store the rest. Assuming that your only source of electricity is the sun.
Right.
Okay, so that means that if you need 24,000 per day, you need to create, use, and store within that window.
Right.
Okay? Yeah, so it's always good to have extra.
Right.
Yeah.
Extra doesn't spoil the soup.
Gra.
Right, so we have David joining us. Hi, Kwame.
How you doing? Nice talking to you guys.
Hold on a second. I think I'm having challenges with the sound. Kwame, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great,
can you hear
great.
me?
Excellent.
Yes. So we've been having this conversation. We had this discussion last week, and we decided that we needed to break it down even further. So, with you, Kwame, I want to ask you, what are the parts of a solar system? Because not just told us how to plan, how to get it set up, and all the things to consider. Now, okay, we know we want it. What are the things we need to get if we're trying to set up a solar system?
Okay, it's solar systems are changing all the time. You know, previously the batteries were near the solar panels, or everything was integrated. Now it's a lot more spread out. So there's the basically there's two types. There's the charging circuit to charge the batteries or supply the power, and then there's the storage part of the solar.
Okay, so the charging part of it. What are the parts of the charging part?
Okay, so the charging side is you are using solar panels. Now the solar panels can either be turned directly into grid power, 230 volts, standard ECG voltage, or they can be used, or it can be used to charge a battery bank voltage.
Right.
Or there is a little bit of crossover. Does that make sense, or do you want to?
Yeah, I think you should elaborate some more.
Okay. So kind of like the systems that we have now, that we're more used to now, is is like the grid type systems. So you're taking the solar and you're changing the solar directly from solar DC energy, from solar power to standard ECG voltage.
Right. So under normal circumstances, we can't use the power that's coming from the solar directly. We have to convert it.
Yes, we have to convert it, yes.
Okay. So now we've gotten the panels. That's one. What are we using to do the conversion?
Okay. So for the conversions, we'll use a type of inverter called a grid tie inverter.
Okay. So this is if we're going with a grid tie system. And with the grid tie system, if I remember correctly from last episode, that means that we are relying also on ECG as backup, right?
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm the novice here, so if I'm wrong, you guys tell me. So with that inverter, you're getting power from the solar panels and also power from the ECG.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Then after that, what else do I need? Because I heard you say batteries.
Okay. Now you have another type of inverter which will take power from the grid and just directly charge the batteries. Now these batteries will be used for a rainy day, or can be used late at night when there's no solar.
Right.
So once the batteries are charged, you're taking this voltage, the standard battery voltage, and then converting it back to grid energy, 230 volts.
Okay. So does that mean I need two inverters or I need just one?
This is the two parts. You can have an inverter that has everything built into it.
Okay.
So it would be the grid tie inverter, and it would have the battery charger all built in.
Right.
So it can be separate or they can be integrated.
Which is better?
It's if it's separate, you can split the system up. I think there's one's more cost effective. I think if it's integrated, it's going to be more cost effective.
Okay.
But
so
you're putting more in one box.
Okay. Right. Then after that, then you get the batteries.
Then you get the batteries, yeah.
Okay. And the batteries, do we have type? I mean, you mentioned so many types last week. What would be the best type to consider if I was getting?
Wow.
Not the brand, just the type.
Yeah, it's purely about budget, and it's purely about ease of use. So, worst case scenario would be a car battery, which you wouldn't really want to use. Could be used, but you wouldn't really want to use them. They're not going to last that long.
Okay.
Because
when you say last that long, you mean the longevity of the battery or the longevity of the charge?
Of the battery, well, both. If the battery can't hold a charge, then it's if it can't hold a charge, if the battery is weak, it can't hold a charge. So they're kind of like both linked, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. So, Nocheski. Okay, you wanted to add something?
Oh, okay. So the different types of batteries. So the worst case scenario is a car battery. You wouldn't really want that, but that's the worst case scenario. Then you have dedicated batteries for solar, which can handle a charge and discharge.
Okay.
Some batteries are designed so they can be charged and discharged at a higher, I would say, frequency or more often. If you were charging and discharging a car battery, it might last you 6 months, might last you a year.
Oh.
If you had a dedicated solar battery, it would last you 2 years, 3 years if it was handled right.
Okay.
It's the charging and discharging again that hurts the battery.
Right. So, Nacha, I was coming to you. This so Kwame's given us an overview of the parts of the system.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same as what you also run, what you set up for people.
Yeah, basically yes, but I want to add a bit more to what he said.
Okay.
He was very right about the car battery.
Yeah, I remember.
You should never, you should never use your car battery for solar. Now the reason is very simple. The car battery is built in a special way.
Okay.
It is built to give you a large chunk of power one time for ignition. So it gives you, it's like, for the smokers out there, it's like one time it's a spark, okay, to ignite. So it takes a huge chunk of power one time to start, okay, and then it's virtually dead. Okay, but the solar batteries are meant for something else. They're meant to, they charge quickly and discharge power slowly. And you can also demand large amounts of power from them. So they are totally different.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Yeah, that's very clear.
So, yeah. So, back to your question. What was it?
So what he just described for us, that's basically the same system that you
Yes,
run.
you see, it depends on, typically what we do at Nocheski is to understand the customer. So when you understand the customer, you can either choose to have the grid tie. Typically, if you were doing something for a place like Joy FM or a customer whose daytime energy demands are high, okay, we would consider a grid tie for them because it's daytime use mostly. Then you have the off-grid customers. Those, you see, the grid tie doesn't require a battery, so it's cheaper. Okay, then you have the off-grid customers who require a battery, but then there is also another level which is called the microgrid, which is a fusion of the off-grid and the grid tie. And when it comes to the
hybrid.
Well, yeah, it's a hybrid, but yeah, we call it a microgrid. But then you can also have different types of microgrid. I can tell you with confidence we can do about 5 different types of designs in general when it comes to solar. So it really depends.
So it depends on
the customer
and their demand.
What they want to achieve, their budget, etc., etc., etc.
But so it's not to say that one is better than the other.
Well, there are pros and cons.
Good. So we're going to come to that. So you give me some of the pros and cons, and then David will also give me some of the pros and cons. But in the meantime, we have to go get some money. Yeah.
Go get it.
So we'll be right back after this short commercial break. When we come back, I'll read some of your messages. Nocheski and David will give us some of the pros and cons of the grid tie and the off-grid system. We'll be right back.
If home is where the heart is, then let's go home, shall we? Let's go where the entertainment is, where the passion is, where the laughter is, and sometimes even the tears too. Let's go where we feel safe enough to share our opinions.
And send tweets.
Where we do that embarrassing little dance to our favorite song. Let's go home where the love, the care, and the joy live.
There's no place like home. Connect your home to super fast internet with affordable data bundles from MTN Home. Visit broadband.mtn.com.gh or your My MTN app to sign up today. MTN.
All MTN SIM cards in Ghana must be registered again with only the Ghana card by the 31st of July 2022. The exercise is also applicable to all your data SIMs, your modems, your TurboNet routers, etc. Failure to register your SIM cards will mean that you will not be able to use the internet after the 31st of July 2022. To register your data SIMs, please visit simregistrationportal.mtn.com.gh. So it's simregistrationportal.mtn.com.gh. All you have to do is just fill in your details, and that's it. Please note that the registration is free and you will not be required to make any payments. All them scammers, no payments. So, question number 1, why is solar power so expensive in Ghana? We'll come to that. And then someone also says, it is very bad to use car batteries. Lithium batteries are recommended. And good evening, Spiky. Please, I want to know what are some of the challenges the solar usage brings as compared to hydropower, when there will, where there will be a complaint of a transformer and cables giving out some problems. Ajman Joseph, Community 9, Tema. Thank you very much for those messages. So, you want to answer that first, or you want to go and do the pros and cons?
Well,
so you answer, why is solar so expensive in Ghana?
Well, quality solar has never been cheap in any part of the world. That's why when you go to the West, for example, there's a lot of subsidies.
Right.
Because they want to encourage people to go solar. In our part of the world, it's not like that.
They're not encouraging people.
If you see anybody, okay, you know, you like cars, right? If you see them drive a 745 down the street, it's paid for. Mm-hmm. In the same way, if you see anybody with a solid solar setup, it's paid for, of course. You know, there are some options out there, you know, with financing now, mostly with money from abroad, but they often have to be large systems. You know, they need to be of a certain capacity before, you know, they want to consider, you know, $10 million, you know, stuff like that, you know, like big stuff. Normally, it has to be big installations.
Very big.
Yeah. Then they can do a lease.
Big doesn't sound too big. It has to be very big.
Well, I mean, you can get smaller than $10 million, of course, but typically the largest, most companies would not do a lease for a home, for example. Okay, which is where most people want the solar.
Right. Okay, so well, coming straight to what we left off on, which is the pros and cons of the grid tie and of grid solar. So I'm starting with you, Chesky, and I'll go to David. Grid tie means basically connecting still to ECG for power, right?
Yes, grid tie basically means that you need to have two conditions: sunlight and the presence of the grid, ECG, for the system to start producing.
So without that, it's not going to work? It's
not going to work. There has to be those two conditions. And if the grid goes down, the solar will go down.
Hey.
That's grid tie for you.
Okay, so that's what it means by grid tie. So it's definitely tied
to the grid.
Okay.
And there are no batteries.
There are no batteries involved with that one.
So grid tie is often about 40% cheaper than off-grid systems, because the batteries are the most expensive and the most sensitive part of the entire, setup. So
that's one pro.
That's yeah.
And then a con is that if ECG goes off, you go off. Then you might as well not have had.
Well, no. If the local grid is reliable, for example.
In which case
it isn't. Okay, so I want to use Joy FM as an example.
Right.
There's no way Joy FM doesn't have a generator already. With the current price of diesel, say Joy FM uses, say, about 20,000 cedis of electricity in a month or in a week, okay? Once most of the operation is during the daytime, having a grid tie system is advantageous, because as soon as the sun comes up and there's availability of grid, then the production of solar power would come in. And any deficit will be provided by the grid. Do you understand that part?
Please elaborate.
Okay. Say Joy FM right now in the morning requires 1,000 watts of electricity. Okay. Provided the solar is able to provide all the 1,000. Okay. You don't need a grid. It's going to be there, but it's not going to add up. Now, should there be a deficit? Say now, Joy FM is asking for 1,200. Then the grid kicks in to provide the 200.
Okay, so then you're saving money because
you save money, exactly.
Right, so that's a pro.
That's a pro. So when the grid goes down, the system will shut down. But then you can hybridize and throw the generator in the mix. Right. Now, this is what happens. If it's properly done, it's going to be seamless. When the grid goes out, the generator kicks in. And when it kicks in, it's just going to provide something like a signal that the grid is there. So the generator replaces the grid so that the system continues running, so it's not providing the solar.
So it's not like the grid goes off, solar goes off, and generator takes over fully.
No.
Generator is like backup to the grid.
Yes, that is in the grid tie system, though.
Right.
It's all about design, really. That's why I always say you need to talk to the right people. Okay? Because there are solutions out there.
Okay, so Nocha, you've given us the grid tie. Now, Kwame, David, which one would you rather I called you?
Oh, both. I respond to both.
Okay.
Kwame David.
We have a Kwame Eugene, so yeah, we can do a
Kwame David.
So, Nocha has told us about the grid tie system. Now, I don't know if you, with your experience in the UK, you were also using a grid tie system there?
Sure.
Right.
Yes. In Europe, US, we're not reliant on batteries. The grid's not on and off all the time. So what we're using the what we're saying is that we're going to generate as much power as we can. Any excess power, we will feed it back into the grid and get some money back from that.
Okay, so with your system or your design, as Nocha puts it, is you generate the power, and because you don't have Doomsaw, if it's too much, you just push it back to the grid, and they pay you. So, like in Ghana, if we had a very reliable, I think ECG's been reliable lately. So, as I was saying,
all of it.
What?
All of the ECG's power.
I mean, some people's areas, when it's cloudy, their lights go off. Them it's understandable, but as Winston is indicating, we're digressing. Let's focus on the matter at hand. So if we were generating enough, let's say we had Joy FM had enough solar to generate enough power, and we had excess, we could sell it back to ECG. This was happening in Europe.
Yep.
Right. And they get paid good money.
They get paid. I wouldn't say good money, but they are getting something.
Okay, it's better than nothing.
Yeah,
it's better than nothing. Yeah.
Is that also a possibility of, say, if I was generating enough power, I could sell to my neighbors and not back to the grid? So, like, maybe my neighborhood, I've set up a very good solar system and connected to the grid. My neighbors don't have solar, and their lights went off. And I say, hey, I can give you power. Is there something like that?
I would say, just extrapolating, taking that a little bit further, you could, if you had a piece of land, and you put solar on the land. Now you sold the solar back to the power supply company, maybe ECG. So in effect, you were getting a return back from the solar that you set up on a farm somewhere.
Right.
It's pretty much similar to. It's similar to having a system in your house, because you're actually earning. It doesn't really matter where the system is. If you're selling power back to the grid, you're selling power back to the grid. The money that you get will again pay for anything else. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, it does. But I was asking, so can I sell to my neighbor instead of selling to the grid?
You
couldn't, unless you had a direct connection, a wire running from your house direct to your neighbour's house.
Right.
You couldn't really do that. You couldn't really do that.
Okay. So it's not like
you'd have to be physically connected. If you were physically connected, then fine, you could do that. Nothing's stopping you. But
okay, so nothing's stopping me from running that cable to my neighbours and saying that, hey, there's power.
No, nothing's stopping you. But you start running into physical issues like you'd need some sort of changeover. If his grid, if your neighbour's grid went down, then you'd have to use a changeover to change it over to your grid and vice versa. If it wasn't automated, there are automated systems that will do that for you.
Right. You see, I think I should have asked you the grid tie, because where you're coming from, that's the kind of system that runs there. Yeah. But have you had any experience with off-grid systems here? Or
yes.
There? Whichever.
We split the solar up into a grid tie system and a charging system.
Okay.
So
over there or here?
Here.
Okay.
So although I do speak about grid tie, there's actually a second half which is providing the power from the battery.
Okay.
So the grid tie would supply the power to my local microgrid, and then the other side of my microgrid will then take the power from the microgrid and charge the batteries, and then release it during the day. Release it whenever it was required.
Okay. I think all these things would need to be visualized, because I'm only picturing everything in my head to see how that works, and it sounds very... So, in your opinion, David, off-grid, grid tie, which one works better for Ghanaians?
What you want is depends on how much resilience you want.
Okay.
Depends what you're running. If you're happy with the if you're happy with outage, if you've got your generator, if you're happy that the grid goes off and you start your generator, and don't forget, if you're running a grid tie, your grid tie can obviously subtract the power from your generator. So if your generator's running at 100% and you switch on your grid tie, it would, depend on the amount of power, it could reduce the percentage of the generator, 50, depend on how much power you're generating. It all depends what you want. If you want an automated system that you don't touch, a fully automated system would have an ECG input. It would also have a solar input, and it would have a battery input output. So it has three types of connectivity, and depending on the time of the day and the configuration, it will pick and choose which one it's going to use. If you wanted a very high demand, you could perhaps switch over to ECG. Right. If you wanted a solar, and if you wanted to use the solar as a primary system and the ECG as a secondary system, again, that's configurable.
Okay.
If the ECG goes down, you can jump straight onto the batteries at night time. So you're going to have 3 or 4 different types of inputs. You can also have a generator input. If the solar's not producing any power at night time, ECG's gone down, your batteries are connected on and are producing power. If the batteries start going down, all of a sudden you can send a signal to your generator, which will also start your generator and bring in more power. So all these systems are all configurable.
Right. So
these are hybrid systems.
So from what I'm gathering from both of you, the most important thing is to know how much power you're consuming, and that would determine the design that you'd have.
Yeah, and what you want to achieve with it.
What you want to achieve with it.
Okay, so for example, I'll give you a very typical example. If I were a travel consultant and you came to me and you said, I want to go to New York right now, I'm not going to say go to Delta and buy a ticket. I say charter a flight.
Right.
That's
assuming I can afford it.
Of course. I mean, you said you want to go to New York right now.
Maybe I'm mentally unstable.
But people do it, see.
Right,
people charter flights. So if you've got the cheese and the money, Charlie.
That's what's up. If you've got the cheese.
You can.
Winston, Michael.
Oh yeah, I have one question. So you talked about the grid tying and the need for the grid to be on for it to run. Why is that the situation? Is for lack of a better term, because I'm not an expert. Is the grid going to serve as that proverbial car battery to provide the spark needed for the solar panels to do the rest of the job? Or basically, why must there? Because I mean, I'm sure many of our listeners are presuming that, okay, if I have a solar setup and it's during the day, if the day is day, why do I need ECG to still be in the mix?
Is that a question to me?
Yeah.
So it's a type of solar, and those are the conditions for it to work. So, for example, why doesn't a Tesla car have an engine?
It's not hybrid.
Because it doesn't use diesel, or it doesn't use hydrocarbon fuels. So in the same way, that is because that type of solar was built specifically for areas where there are no grid failures, or virtually zero.
So it's basically to cut your cost.
To cut your cost. That's what it's built for, and to export any excess to the grid. Hence the tie.
Yeah. Okay.
So for people who are pro-green, Green Earth aficionados, and Greta Thunberg fans like Michael, that's what they would do.
I mean, if you're a customer and you said, okay, well, I already have a lot of people have generators.
Yeah.
Big generators. Loads of people have them. 60K is very popular. 45, it's a decent size. And they if they wanted to go solar, they've already invested in the generator. And so all these generators are very high quality generators. I don't want to name any brands, but they're very high quality generators already been bought.
Yeah.
So if you spoke to us, for example, I would say, okay, you can do a solar power system that's about 40% less. Keep the generator, if you don't mind the noise, of course, and do a grid tie. You're going to cut down your electricity in a very, very,
short period.
Yeah, you're going to chop it up, like,
so
downwards.
Hey, Douglas, my titles are always increasing. Honorable General. I'm not honorable, and I'm not a military general. So Douglas says, solar systems in Ghana, do you think it will help forever looking at climate change? And can you do combination of solar and electricity, aka the grid, at the same time? Yes, I believe that's what a grid tie is. And solar energy is just too expensive while we have hot and sunny weather here. Yeah, so Douglas's question number one is, he's looking at climate change. Will it impact solar energy? And then he's also asking why it's too expensive when we have so much sun here. So, yeah.
I think...
Why is it so expensive? I'm not sure.
I think...
Well, expensive is relative.
Let me take this for the layman. Let me take. So Douglas, why is it expensive? So basically, based on the things that Noche has said, I realized a very important thing, which is a lot of the solar research is actually not really happening here, because, like you described, the grid tie system is made in the mind of people where their power doesn't go off. That's not the situation. Yeah, they have reliable power. So that's not the situation here. So I'm guessing we should invest or attract investors who would want to research it. Because an interesting thing is, I'm not a Greta Thunberg fan, but I am a fan of green stuff, and I did a lot of research. And Ghana finds.
You rode a bicycle here?
No, I would love to.
Okay, so
I would love to. Ghana finds itself in one of, I've forgotten what it's called, but there are like 6 zones in all the world that has the best and most optimum sunlight, like he said, the 5.5 hours. And Ghana finds itself in one of those areas. I think certain parts of, and I think Chile was actually best for wind energy generation, but that's besides the point. So I think we should find people to come here who would be interested in researching and then making these solar setups for us. As for it helping us climate, you're in the equator, the sun is not going anywhere. Unless the sun itself goes off, you base. And yeah, so it will help, but there are certain constraints of solar now that technology will solve in the future. Like, for instance, like David said, you need, if you created a solar farm, you need space. So the land and they sell for the Labadi and things. If you want to do solar farm, you have to pay for that land and then set up the installations before you run it. But last week, Noche talked about how now there were 680 watt panels. Or was it
620?
620 watt panels. Definitely in the next 2 years, there'll probably be 1,000 watt panels. So the more efficient the panels become, the less land space you need. Apparently, the US needs 13.6 million acres of land for a solar farm before they can be totally green. That's not that's a lot of land.
And then also, I remember that in this part of the world, we can put, I mean, in Ghana specifically, we don't have limits to which angle we can angle.
Yeah, that was actually a funny thing to find out.
Yeah, to know that in the UK or in the West, there's so many regulations. But then again, we also need to petition our leaders to subsidize these things, because we're not getting them as a luxury item. It's helping.
I think at this point it's a luxury item.
Yeah, I mean, at the price point
it shouldn't be. Yeah,
it's a luxury item, but it's not.
It shouldn't
naturally, it's not. It's something that is helping us, helping the world, reducing the stress on Akusumbo and all our other power generation points. Because, I mean, think about it. If you subsidize solar panels, you are encouraging more people to go green, thereby reducing the risk of carbon emissions. And
I don't think Ghana is concerned with
that. Well, we have to be.
It's very interesting because I actually did a climate change course in uni, and I know some of the interesting things that happen with climate, especially in this part of the world. But I think what is most important is that I think the leaders should look at it this way: you can subsidize the solar setups or even fund it, and in return, when people set up the grid-tied systems, you don't pay them.
Yeah.
The excess automatically just goes into the grid,
yeah.
And you don't pay anybody, but at least you help reduce the cost of their setup. And I feel like that's
a win-win
okay.
situation.
Yeah, it's an okay balance for now. What do you think?
Well, I think that governmental policy is a big deal when it comes to solar. You see, there is nothing that concerns solar that we produce in these parts. Nothing.
Wow.
Okay, we don't. The only thing that we have here is the sun.
Yep. That's
the cables are imported. The solar panels are imported. The inverters are imported. The batteries are imported. In fact, now of course we have quality expertise here, but that most of it was learned abroad.
I was just about to say that the skills are imported.
Exactly, and it's just that by virtue of the the provision of the services, you kind of you kind of increase your knowledge and you find out new things and you apply them in your area.
Right.
Okay, so you kind of spruce things up, even though it's the original knowledge was from abroad. Okay. What I think really needs to be done is for example, say the government of Ghana, and I hope they are listening, says that, okay, for the next 5 years, if you are bringing in a certain quality standard of goods or solar products, we are going to knock off all the taxes or a percentage of the taxes off. And I'm talking about from solar panels to batteries, cables, whatever. If it has to do with solar, I think this would encourage a lot of people because it's going to be cheaper. The taxes in this country are bananas. The taxes, and you know that high quality solar products they are not cheap. Okay, but I think that a lot also has to do with the Ghanaian, the populace here.
Right.
Most people would rather find it easier buying a Mercedes. Okay, and I understand, right? Than spending that money on the solar power system. Okay, so it's what goals, right?
Yeah.
Choices. But of course, the taxes on the Mercedes is not easy as well, right?
Mike, why are you biting your tongue? So Quincy says for solar sizing, you can use your ECG bills to estimate. He's done solar over 10 years, and it's very bad to use car batteries here. And he says you can have grid-tied solar systems with batteries. He's done such installations in Accra. And thank you very much for your submission, Kwesi. We're going to take another commercial break. When I come back, I just read the last few messages. I don't think I'll have enough time. There's already a process in place where government gives a couple of free solar panels to individuals who wish to have the setup done for their homes. That's from Sam Ado. Oh, wow. This is news. What do we need to go and get some?
What?
Yeah, but I need to go for that commercial break. We'll be right back.
The other day, I visited Kweku at his spunky new office to congratulate him on opening his business. And man, was I impressed. The business is just moving quick. The sales, customers, everything is just working seamlessly. The secret? He said,
It's MTN Business Broadband. In this fast-paced environment, we need fast and reliable internet to support all business types. No laggy online meetings, great download and upload speeds, impeccable business management systems, all inclusive. I mean, you can have it all.
Sharp! I signed on immediately.
To enable your business stay ahead and stay connected, make sure you're signed on to the best internet made just for businesses. MTN Business Broadband. Sign up today on broadband.mtn.com.gh and manage your account on my MTN app. Call 0244 308 111 for more information.
MTN.
And we're back. Geek Squad is brought to you by MTN everywhere you go. So greetings. Can there be solar cells using nanotechnology like on glass in order not to interfere with the penetration of sunlight? That's Alfred from Malijo.
Yes, it exists. It's still in the experimental stage, but they have made transparent glass solar panels. They are not, because they are still in the testing phase, they're not as efficient as traditional solar panels, and it's still early technology, but we'll get there.
Eventually.
Yes,
and with that, we've run out of time, but we hope we did earn the privilege of your time, and we educated you on solar with Noche Amate from Nocheski Solar and David Kwame Adade. They are our solar experts for today, even though Nocheski doesn't like to be called an expert, but yes. Thank you very much to you for listening. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Winston. Thank you to my producers, Prince Safo, Abeku Sankofi, Dennis the Fairboy, Chris, and Tracy Newman. My name is Kobe Spikey Nkrumah.